Hello and welcome to the second episode of Twin Cities Territory here on the Foul Territory Network. I am Zack Pierce alongside Dan Hayes. We are both of The Athletic. Dan is the Minnesota Twins beat writer in Baltimore right now with the team for the opening weekend series. I am just The Athletic's Olympics editor. I'm still not sure why I'm here, but I am coming to you today from our Palm Springs bureau. It's still very dark this morning on this Friday morning, not just here but also in Twins fan land after a frustrating opening day. How about that segue into today's topics? But the Twins are 0-1, Dan, after a loss Thursday in Baltimore, 2-1. Plenty to talk about from that one, and I guess we'll get right into it. How's that sound?
Yeah, that sounds great. And
I should. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was gonna say it was crazy. It was a really spectacular day in Baltimore, like 75 degrees. It was aesthetically about as pleasing as possible. And then if you're a Twins fan, the game was quite the opposite from that perspective.
Well, I'm glad it was so pleasant for you, Dan. The day started for me in the Minneapolis-St. Paul airport, running into TC Bear, who came through the Delta Sky Club and was handing out tickets to next Friday's home opener, which insert joke here if you want, but a pretty cool thing for the Twins to do, I would say, also to help drum up some interest for what's probably, I would imagine, a tough sell these days on tickets given the outlook for the team this year. But so I might be there with you.
Hey, by the way, I wanted to tell you, that was just some guy that was walking through the airport.
It was just some guy. Okay.
Yeah, somebody decided to go to MSP and hang out and hand out tickets, and he was just some guy. So
the tickets aren't even real. We'll get there, and my kids will be crushed. Like, okay, good to know. Well, I won't tell my son that he was high-fiving some guy and not actually a bear. Good to know. The first episode was also my Michael Jordan flu game, so I'm hoping that I have a little more energy today, but perhaps less of a voice. But we'll get through it. We'll power through it. Anyway, back to the matter at hand. The opening day game, frustrating in a lot of ways. I think maybe indicative of how we expected this season to go. Really,
sure.
A strong effort from the starting pitching. Bullpen only allowed 2 runs, but it was enough to lose the game because the bats just couldn't come through in the clutch. Dan, sort of what was your overall takeaway from game 1 of 162?
Yeah, this team came in with a lot of questions about how it was going to hit against left-handed pitching, and we're going to have those questions. We will get to that, but the biggest takeaway, let's start with Joe Ryan, just because that's the least frustrating part of yesterday, I think. And that's a good place to start, just because, he had a strange spring that followed a at least interesting offseason at the start of it. That followed, last year at the trade deadline, thinking he'd been traded. And there were plenty of reasons for him to be a little bit distracted. And he looked fantastic. In fact, I think the only thing that stopped him was his pitch count yesterday. He had to top out it. He couldn't throw more than 85 pitches just because where he's building up wise. But Joe Ryan delivered in every way possible for the Twins. You're filling in for Pablo. Joe Ryan's like the 1A. Pablo Lopez, you can argue either way which guy's going to go first. It most likely was going to be Pablo Lopez. Then he blew out his elbow and had Tommy John surgery. So Joe Ryan filled in, and there was no letdown at all. I mean, he was amazing, and there had been some velocity stuff for him. Going into his last start, he averaged 91.9 with his fastball. And I think, the one thing that is great about spring training now is we have these numbers because everybody has them. Every team, they've started using the StatCast system down there. And so you get all these numbers. The bad part is we have these numbers and people freak out because this is a time when guys are usually building up. And so they're not reaching their season high velocities. And there was a lot of talk about whether or not Joe Ryan's velocity was going to be an issue for him. And he was fantastic. The velocity, the first 3 pitches was 94.7, 95, and then 95.8. And Joe Ryan had said after his last start, actually, I think my velocity is right where it typically is at this time of year. It's right where it was, and the season sort of takes care of itself. And it was like, okay, Joe Ryan, I'm trusting you. Like, I believe you. And then we looked at Baseball Savant, and last year in spring training for the 2 recordable games, Joe Ryan was 92 miles an hour. And it's like, oh, yeah, he knows what he's talking about. He's really on this. And so for him to like say, yeah, it's going to be there, and then to come out like that and show it first 3 batters. And granted, that was an amazing crowd, 42,000 people. Just there's not many places that are better to be on opening day than Camden Yards, especially when it's 75. I mean, there was just this buzz in the city yesterday because, I know we had a pretty rough winter, and that last storm was pretty brutal. They had a very similar type winter, and that's very uncharacteristic for them. So they were looking to be outside and enjoy it, and it was great energy in town. And Joe Ryan just rode that, and it was so impressive the way he handled it. And Trevor Rogers for the Orioles was just as good. I'd say Ryan was actually better. He was more efficient. He got, he didn't allow the base runners. Rogers just pitched extremely well when he had to, and went longer into the game than Joe Ryan. But it definitely was a weird year for him. Like, it's been a weird time, and here are all these potential distractions, and I think he did a good job just dismissing all of them and going and doing what he does.
5 1/3 innings, 1 hit, no runs, 2 walks, 7 strikeouts. A very solid first outing, as you said, but you couldn't just let Twins fans have that joy, Dan, could you? You had to point out in your article in The Athletic that actually might just lead to his early exit from Minnesota. Obviously, the team having conducted that fire sale at the trade deadline last year. Who knows where they're going to go from here? But Joe Ryan's
Right.
certainly one of their top remaining trade pieces if they choose to go that way. And certainly with all the talk out there, it seems like that's a pretty high likelihood for the future.
Yeah, we're going to change the Chiron below my name to the Grinch, because I did write that. Look, it's hard not to face the reality that if the Twins go as everyone projects them to go, they're going to be in July looking probably to sell again. And that's a difficult spot, and they won't have nearly the amount of pieces to trade off that they did last year. I mean, everybody knew there were like 6 guys free agent wise that going into the deadline last year could be traded, between Danny Coulomb, Chris Paddock, Harrison Bader. And by the way, I'm really going to test myself here for an early morning, remembering all 6 guys. There's no shot I'm remembering. Anyways, they had 6 free agents that we thought, hey, they could trade that. Well, they don't have that very much this year. They have Josh Bell on a 1-year contract, and he definitely is a guy that teams acquire, and he's been traded before at the deadline. There's very few free agents that they have. So it's a lot of young guys. So you look for the guys who are closer to going into free agency. And that's Joe Ryan, who's got a year and a half at that time. He's basically got 2 years on his contract right now. But the peak time in baseball trade guys is when they're a year and a half out. And so Pablo Lopez will also be there. Obviously, he's hurt. That pretty much disqualifies him from being traded. Ryan Jeffers is a free agent at the end of this season. He's a guy that would potentially be looked at. But, I mean, if the Twins are headed down that path of a 78-win season or a 72-win season, whatever they are, and Joe Ryan's going to leave in free agency. Yeah. It's when we talk to him at the end of the season, he wants frontline starting pitching money. And it was me and Matthew Leach from MLB.com. We're talking to him in the dugout in Texas, and he was saying, wanted like a 6 or 7 year deal. And I don't know how the Twins would do frontline money for 6 or 7 years, because that to me is something like 6 and 180 or 7 and 210. And we've seen what a huge one huge contract can do in hamstringing the Twins. Now, I know they want to potentially spend money. They're not. They haven't. The payroll's down again, $35 million. So it's lip service till they do it. I know they want to spend, but I don't know that that's going to be in line with what they want to do. So it's like, all right, Joe Ryan, the likelihood he's going to leave at free agency. So if you do lose, do you just cash in and get a lot of prospects. Because if Joe Ryan pitches the way he did yesterday, look, I said a weird spring. Think about all these things that he had. First, he thought he got traded at the deadline, right? There was a bad tweet sent out by another service, and everybody thought for about 5 or 6 minutes Joe Ryan had been traded to the Red Sox. He certainly did. And the team had to say the next day, no, we didn't come close. I mean, there had been discussion, of course, but we didn't come close. So that was not accurate. So then he goes into the offseason, and at the start of the offseason, the front office was wishy-washy about what they were going to do because they had no direction. The partial sale of the team still was not complete. They didn't know what ownership wanted them to do. So not only did they not know if they could add to the roster at the time, they didn't know if they could keep Joe Ryan or Pablo Lopez. And if they traded them, either of them, and started to tear down some more, Byron Buxton was saying, I want out. So it was going to be like this big mess. And that was basically October into early November. They weren't talking to agents or to teams about ways of adding at the GM meetings right after Derek Shelton had been hired. It wasn't until 3 weeks later that they started those conversations, and they quickly actually signed Josh Bell at the winter meetings. But it was clear that once the partial sale was complete, that's when they sort of got their marching orders. So there was that limbo period for Joe Ryan. Now, fortunately, his first child was born in the offseason. That was a great distraction for him. He was preparing for the WBC. It was another great distraction. So he was okay either way. But then January comes along, and he's about 2 hours from arbitration, 3 hours. The next morning, everybody was flying to Phoenix to go for arbitration. And he was okay with that, but nobody wants to go to arbitration and sit across the table from your employer and hear how you suck, the ways that you were terrible, and so that they can get salaries down. And it's a nasty process. And the Twins actually did a really good thing. They went above his midpoint. In the two sides were about, I don't know, $500,000 apart, I think, in their ask, and the Twins went about $100,000 above the midpoint and avoided arbitration. So that got cleared up. But then he gets to camp, and Pablo gets hurt, and 5 days later he gets scratched in his first start. And all of a sudden you're like, oh man, what's going on? Are they losing both guys? And they knew pretty quick it was back tightness, and Joe was back out there right away. But it's just, it's been distraction after distraction after. It's so weird what has gone on, and I'm totally losing focus on what my tangent was going on here. But it's essentially that this could end up being him on the block at some point, and it's just gonna maybe get there if the Twins are good, then you add around him and you take those 2 years. But who knows if they're gonna get there? We talked about the other day. There's so many questions to answer for this team. Some of them surfaced yesterday, and it's gonna be it's gonna just be a continuation of all the stuff that Joe Ryan has been going through since August, essentially. And he has done a great job being like, I'm here and I'm happy to be here. This is where he's had his success. So it's a great play. If he's pitching to free agency, if he's here for these 2 years, say the Twins got good and they want to stick with Joe Ryan and not trade him and then get a comp pick for him after next year, he is content being with the Twins. It's the first place he had success. He's really good. He's comfortable here. I don't think the distractions will be there I think he's good at warding them off, but there certainly is, that reality's there. The clock started yesterday if this team can't win, because you got to cash in on that guy if they don't win. And it's tough to say it because I know Twins fans want to focus on the season, but it's at least in the room. It's the elephant in the room for sure.
Well, there you have it. Dan Hayes stealing your joy from the lone bright spot, perhaps, of Game 1, the Grinch. But it's spot on. I mean, certainly enjoy Joe Ryan while you can, Twins fans, because obviously you mentioned it, Dan. If they're good, things change. But if not, it's hard to believe this franchise of all franchises spending top line free agent money to keep him around to be a pitcher for a team that's not bringing it.
One thing real quick on that. I got to talk to Bailey Ober about it, and he did say Byron Buxton, Bailey Ober, Ryan Jeffers, Pablo Lopez, this group of guys that survived that trade deadline and had to endure it and saw all their teammates traded away, they are enjoying it. They are taking the time to sort of smell the roses and enjoy the conversations. Bailey Ober was watching that intently because they've banded together as a group because they want to teach this core the right way. They want to be like, and so even they're enjoying it. They're making sure to smell the roses along the way. Just knowing, because how do you not think it's part of the reality?
I thought for a second the police were coming there to take you away for that take of yours, but it sounds like the sirens have gone away, so that's good. We'll move on from Mr. Ryan to probably the bigger or the reason the Twins didn't pull out that first game. Just they could not get a hit when it mattered. 1 for 12 with runners in scoring position. From what I was able to watch on our flight out here, I saw more than one bases loaded inning and in nothing. And Dan, we saw it coming, I guess, but certainly a frustrating start for the lineup.
Yeah, and again, this is going to be a team I think that struggles against left-handed pitching. Not that you don't see a ton of that during the season as far as starters. You know, it's a small portion of the schedule, but the fact that their backup catcher was the starting first baseman to get another right-handed bat in the lineup, it speaks kind of volumes to what this team is having to do to get ready for lefties. And I thought the at-bats early were good. And then when Trevor Rogers buckled down, and remember, I think sometimes fans forget, that's their best guy too. You're going up against their best guy. And Trevor Rogers last year had a 1.81 ERA in 103 innings and was really good. Generated a lot of buzz, and he really turned it on when he got guys on. And I think he allowed 7 base runners in his 7 innings. I think it was 3 hits, 4 walks. Something like that. But when he got to first and second, he started using his off speed, and he got a lot of swings and misses. He got a lot of double plays. That was a frustrating part of it. And one, I think the worst one, the biggest gift of the day was the dropped fly ball in right field that Luke Keeschel reaches on a 2-base error. And Luke Keeschel didn't advance from second base after that. And that's in the middle of the order. Luke Keeschel hit third yesterday. The lineup against Trevor Rogers was Martin leading off. I think we'll see a little bit of that. Byron Buxton hitting second, Luke Keeschel hitting third. And so you're at the 4th, 5th, 6th spots, and they didn't advance him. And I went out after the game and met some friends, Twins fans, and they said, if you're against a guy like that, you got to think about manufacturing. Okay, look, I understand that idea for sure. And I think if the Twins are going to struggle and play a lot of tight games, eventually they may have to resort to manufacturing. I mean, they've already talked about wanting to run the bases hard and take extra 90 feet. And, we saw Austin Martin steal a base after his single. I think it was the first pitch yesterday after his single. That could be something the Twins have to get to for sure. But asking any of your 4, 5, 6 hitters, the middle of your order guys, to lay down a bunt on opening day, like it's just, would it be a great tone setter? Yeah, that would be a great tone setter. But also, I don't know that you can really do that. And I think it was tough because they just did nothing with runners in scoring position. Every chance they got, whether it was the 3 double plays, and it just fed into everything that I think fans are worried about with this team. And the same old, we can't score, we have all these chances. And it certainly hurt them yesterday. I mean, you grab any momentum early on if you get an early run. We'd seen it the night before with San Francisco and New York. The Giants had first inning, first and third, didn't score. Yankees came back and got Logan Webb for 5 runs. And it just had that feeling yesterday of a weird game where it's like, even though Joe Ryan was so good, anything could go wrong at the drop of a hat because the Twins had wasted so many opportunities. Joe did a good job sticking through that. And he actually gave up that deep fly ball. I think it was Blaze Alexander hit a fly ball to the warning track at the end of the 5th inning. And that looked like that play where it was like, oh man, it's going to be 2-0 in a heartbeat here. But the problem is when your offense does that, you just definitely leave yourself in a spot where you're vulnerable and your bullpen is not built for tight games. Not right now, at least. They need to figure out the roles. They need to figure out who their trusted guys are, and so you kind of had a feeling how that game was going to end. And you know, even the one hit with runners in scoring position was Luke Keeshaw in the infield, and there was a runner on second. That runner couldn't even advance because it was an infield hit to shortstop. So it was like it just all the fears were worried. And again, Trevor Rogers absolutely dialed it up when he got into those situations, and he is a very good pitcher. But there's certainly some disappointment if you're the team, if you're that group, because you had your chances to support Joe Ryan, and you couldn't get it done. Yeah, it was. I'm glad that Buxton got the triple, and Keeshaw. Like I think that's the two right there that are going to be the make or break in this offense all season long. They're the igniters. They're the fire starters, kind of like those are the guys, and that was a nice combination to see them get on the board and make it a game, so that the Twins could threaten to at least get back in it in the ninth. But what from your perspective, what's it like watching that go on and on?
It just looks very familiar, and I think it illustrates everything we talked about in the first show, that the margin for error is just not there. It's the season of if everything goes right. Well,
right.
A lot of things did go right. Joe Ryan had a great start. They're getting base runners, but it's not a team, it seems, that can overcome 1 for 12 runners in scoring position and three double plays and missing those opportunities for sure. And if they had, in even one instance, they might have pulled that one out.
Yeah. And let's go with the caveat that it is opening day and it's a different day, right? That there's a lot of adrenaline that guys haven't. You're playing in Florida in front of 7,000 people. There's not, except for the guy on top of the dugout at the home games yelling into the microphone like this. There's not a lot of noise and energy in spring training. And so you're 42,000 people. There's a lot of different, you have to learn to play with that again and learn how to silence that crowd and just focus on what you have to do. So there are certain things you can throw out the window, and they are going to get balls to go through. And what's so kind of, I don't know, ironic is that the Twins had all those chances and couldn't get done. The Orioles basically got those C&I singles to jumpstart their whole rally, and their only rally of the day was on the kind of balls the Twins desperately needed, just something to get through. Because the Twins hit some pretty hard balls yesterday, and they found a lot of gloves. There was some talk about that after the game. Was like, we weren't far off, and so I think they're encouraged in that regard. But on the execution level, it's clearly discouraging. So, first one, gotta trash it, and they got a day off to, just get ready for tomorrow.
I think we can have a standing caveat that, it's just one game, but we are here to obsess over pretty much every game on this podcast. So, and also, like, when it goes almost exactly according to the way it was sort of predicted that the entire season would go, I think it stands out a little bit more. But yes, it is one game. We'll see what Saturday, Sunday, and beyond bring. One more thing we should talk about, Dan, from that game, Royce Lewis batted eighth. Reached base once, but then was pinch hit for in the ninth inning in a 1-run game. Just curious what you heard about that and your take on his debut.
Yeah, look, it's one of those moments that everybody raises their eyes, right? Because this is the guy that was the playoff hero and hit 10 home runs in June 2024 and looks like he can be a star. And here we are on opening day, him getting pinch hit in the ninth inning with the runner on base. And first, let me just... The last time we were here for opening day, 2018, my first season on Twins Beat, eerily similar situation actually happened. Derek Shelton was in the bench for that on Paul Mauter's staff. On the bench for that, Paul Mauter's staff. Byron Buxton got pinch hit for in the ninth inning of opening day, 2018. I remembered it like it just kicked in. Robbie Grossman pinch hit for him. Paul Mauter brought in Robbie Grossman in a key spot. Robbie Grossman parachuted in a 2-run game-tying single with a pinch hit. I don't know if Derek Shelton was trying to bring that back. The Twins lost in 11 that day, by the way, 3-2. But I don't know if that was Derek Shelton having a recall, but very similar situation to your hopeful young star and pinch hitting for him. But Shelton, this is going to be key because Royce Lewis is a vibes guy, and communication is going to be key. But Shelton basically said after the game, you can't take it personal. Like, this is something, we're going to do this at times. It doesn't matter who it is. Their closer, Helsley, throws a 102. It's a tough matchup. We are a righty lefty. We're going to do this with guys. And so now I think the key is, and I guarantee you, because Derek Shelton really wanted to talk about communication and how important it is and make it a key, something he learned since his time in Pittsburgh. I guarantee you there was conversation with Royce yesterday. There'll probably be a conversation with Royce tomorrow, again at the ballpark, just to make sure that the message is heard and like he knows it's not personal. This was just something that was going to happen. It happened to be him at the time. Could have been Brooks Lee a batter later, that kind of thing. And, getting that message across will be important because Royce Lewis, they desperately are going to need, I know he batted 8th yesterday. They're going to need him to be a big player for this team if they want to be successful. And they know that. So for sure it raised eyes. And then Derek Shelton said, look, it's don't take it personal. Like, this is just going to happen. So we'll see. It's just one game, Zach.
It's just, we need a counter on how many times we use that phrase over the course of the season.
I'm going to try and just remove it from my my lexicon there. We'll see.
All right. So Royce Lewis pinch hit for in a clutch moment. Lineup 1 for 12 with runners in scoring position, 3 double plays. Bullpen gave up 2 runs. Joe Ryan, great, but Dan Hayes thinks you should start saying your goodbyes to him right now, just to be safe. All that said, I think we should end on maybe this will be a recurring segment, something to feel better about or something to make you feel good. We'll workshop what to call it exactly, but at least it wasn't the worst loss in the AL Central yesterday. The White Sox struck out 20 times in a 14-2 loss to the Brewers, so it could be worse. It could be worse.
That might, you know what? Let's call the segment "It Could Be Worse." I think that's it.
Okay.
The Twins go with Hunt for the Good. The Twins are doing Hunt for the Good. Let's go with "It Could Be Worse." I think that's our counter to that. So.
All right. Well, as Dan mentioned, Twins are off Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. They finish up the series in Baltimore, then off to Kansas City. Did I get that right, Dan?
Yes. And they have a weird schedule there. Monday, day off Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So.
And then the home opener next Friday, which as of now will be my son's first Twins game, assuming he still wants to go next Friday. We'll see. Thank you, TC Bear, or whoever you were at the airport for the tickets. But we'll be back with you sometime soon next week. And we should also very soon have the debut of Tyler Duffy joining us on this podcast. So we'll try to get that fired up soon. But that's it for today. Twins are 0-1, back at it on Saturday, and we will be back with you next week on Twin Cities territory. Thank you so much for listening. And for Dan Hayes, I'm Zack Pierce. We'll see you next time.
Real quick, if you like what you're hearing, hit that subscribe button. Definitely.
Good shout out.
Yeah.
But I gotta get used to this whole process. I know, but I'll get there.
It's weird. Yeah.
All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.